This is a real working submarine airplane. But how did we get here? Well, let's build an airplane first. So yeah, that's all we need to do to make a giant RCC plane. It's a seaplane, not a submarine yet. It also floats, that's why I put this pool in here. And now we've cut the wingtips so it can fit in the car. After we fly it, I'm gonna hook up the pumps. I'll explain all that in a minute. We need to go test this first, and then we can work on actually submerging it, because now that we've got the airplane built out of the way, I need to make sure the airplane can airplane. Bonk. I live in Ohio and this sucks, but we have very unideal conditions for a brand new maiden of a new airplane. It's blowing like maybe 15 to 20 knot gusts. It's a float plane, the water's choppy, so I don't know what's gonna happen. Because this wind, I'm gonna have not great taxi authority because it might flip over if I try to taxi around. So I'm gonna put it down and then take off, just nail it. We're just gonna go for it and see what happens. All right, you ready for it? Aw, it broke. Well, there's a reason we're downwind from it. The motor broke off. So I just tried to attach this to the PLA. I think these nacelles may be a bad idea. I may go with just metal for now or something different, because that kind of sucked. All right, well, all that for nothing. Let's go back. Yeah, you know how we were talking about how the weather was awful yesterday? Well, I'm in like a 5-day period where the weather's just awful every single day. And this is day 2, and guess what? It's even worse. But that's not gonna stop me from trying this against my own better judgment. Try this again. Go. Hey, fly, oh, it flutters. Alright, so I see you reinforce it. Oh, that's not too bad. On a scale of like 1 being the awfulest and 10 being the best, it's probably like a 4. But it just needs some reinforcement because it fluttered and I do not want to push it. But hey, it flies, so we can work on the submarining part. Oh, it's sinking. Oh no. It's got a pontoon. It'll float back eventually.
Will it?
Yeah. You see, I knew this was going to happen. So that's why I brought the boat from the video like 10 years ago. This flies terrible, but why does it fly so horribly compared to my normal airplanes? Well, the reason is buoyancy. My normal airplanes on the channel are constructed of foam board or some other lightweight material that takes up a large volume of space to become rigid. The problem with that is the density of styrofoam is less than water, so it tends to float. That's not an issue since our planes fly through the air. However, we eventually need to go underwater, which means we can't have the typical foam airplane die below the water. The less dense styrofoam would need some steel weights to offset the buoyancy of the structure. I've already troubleshooted the problem, so that's why this plane is made the way it is. It's printed out of PLA and corrugated plastic. These materials by themselves are not as buoyant at all, especially the PLA, which is slightly negative in the water, and the coroplast plastic stuff, which is slightly positive in the water. It means we can focus more on just building the structure of the airplane versus having to try to finagle a foam plane and load it up with waste to sink it underwater. So now that we've flown this plane, it's time to think of how are we going to sink this airplane. The structure is hopefully going to be neutral when underwater, But since we've added these pontoon floats, they have enough buoyancy to float the plane and let us take off, which worked. Perfect for the regular float plane, but now we need to go underwater. My idea is that we install these pumps and simply pump water inside the floats to make the plane sink. Removing the displacement force of the floats means the plane should sink and then become a submarine. I've got these pumps, and it turns out that finding the correct pump is kind of the problem here, because some pump designs such as this diaphragm pump doesn't work when the motor direction is reversed. It simply just keeps pumping water. But after some pump research and wasting a few dollars on Amazon, I found this gear pump. We can simply reverse the direction the motor rotates to get the pump to extract water, which we will need to do to unsubmarine this airplane. And now we are sinking. As you've seen in the demonstration, we've installed that system in these floats. So right now it is pumping water to itself, and the water line is creeping up. It is sinking. It's going down. Here's the next dilemma. Once the water's inside the plane, we need a way to pump it out to get the plane to somehow float. I designed this small float so we can visualize how this will work. It's buoyant right now, but when I turn this pump on, it fills with water and sinks. That's perfect. But the issue becomes removing the water. Switching the direction of the motor starts the pump out process. I went ahead and designed the straw in the float, which should be the lowest part of the pontoon. The other issue is that we can't just have this one hole here for filling and unfilling. We need a way to let air in and out of the float, depending on the operation mode. If we were to seal this hole, the pumping in of water would ultimately make the float pop, since it would be full of the original air, and now water would pressurize the float. It's underwater now, but let's try to surface. Reversing the pump and, well, nothing. The vent line is below the water, so any water displaced from the float is automatically refilled by the vent line, which is also below the water. By adding this tube and making sure it's above the surface of the water, this now begins to rise as the float is now replacing the water with air. Let's strap all this crap to the airplane and see if it actually works. Okay, we're almost done. We're almost ready to do this. But there's one other issue we need to solve. This plane, like the rest of my planes, relies on a radio controlled link to work. The issue is most radio waves do not travel well at all through water, especially 2.4 gigahertz. Interestingly enough, your microwave oven also works on this frequency since water molecules absorb this frequency easily. But if we extend this antenna and keep it above the water, maybe it will work. Let's try it. Now that it works, let's make a receiver box to keep these parts dry, and hopefully this will be adequate for keeping connection to the subplane. I get some sort of bad vibes of watching it sink in the pool since the floats lift the plane from the bottom, and that makes it a little too top heavy, and this is going to cause it to sink in weird angles that are anything but level. This pool is too small, so let's go to the lake and see what's going to happen. It's now time to put it in the water. All the systems are functional inside the radio. Everything is waterproof, to the best of my knowledge. So, put it in the water, let's see what happens. You see the tail's getting ready to go into water. Alright, I'm gonna try to bring the tail out of the water, so I'm gonna arm this. Whoa, it goes so far down. It's less than ideal. Well, I didn't think this thing was actually gonna sink all the way down to the bottom by itself, but taking into account of the flight battery and the motors, this thing is negatively buoyant. This looks so stupid. This isn't normal at all. Did an airplane ever do this? Oh, now it's tipping over. Oh, that's not good either. It's gonna roll over. So we need to offset the weight somehow. Let's use some of this styrofoam. Alright, let's pump out some of this water again. And whoa, it looks kind of level. Alright, let's fill it up again. It's underwater. Alright, it's kind of floating at the surface. Let me just add a little bit of power, and let's push the nose down a little bit.
This looks so cool.
When it's perfectly trimmed, I just add a little more buoyancy to the front and it's now submarining. I just have to keep that antenna just above water and we're good to go. It's flying underwater. It's just literally like an airplane that just totally is airplaning underwater. It's like an airplane in slow motion because it's moving through this super thick fluid. Air is also a fluid, but water is also a fluid. As long as we keep this antenna just above the water, I don't lose radio link and it's totally submarine planing. This looks freaking awesome. Man, this plane is just so cool. I don't really understand, like, in history, like, why they specifically came up with this concept. I imagine the idea was to, like, fly over minefields, which would blow up a normal submarine, land, go underwater, wait for enemy ships, and torpedo them. I mean, the scenario must have been something kind of like this. I've been compromised. They've got my position. My info must have been sold out by online data brokers. Activating incognito mode. Time to protect my privacy. Fire the automated removal requests. Shh. You can run from a bad date. You can run from skippable YouTube ads. But what you can't run from is online data brokers. Not without help, at least. These creepy data brokers know where you live, what you buy, who you text. They slice and dice your personal info, which could include your home address, phone numbers, and even your social security number, and sell it to the highest bidder. I don't want my identity stolen and used to sign up for credit cards and loans I would be responsible for. That's why I went Incogni. Incogni's my cleanup crew, my digital disappearing act. They send legal takedowns to dozens of data brokers, so I don't have to lift a finger. They even deal with all the objections data brokers fire back with, and constantly prowl for your info appearing in online databases. Since activating Incogni mode by signing up and granting Incogni the right to work for me, I've got some real privacy. No more rude calls selling me scams all day and night, and now I have some peace of mind knowing that my privacy is being defended online. You don't need a submarine plane or a secret bunker to hide from online data brokers. You just need Incogni. Sign up, sit back, and slip off the radar. The best thing is, Incogni has a 30-day money-back guarantee if you aren't happy with the service. So go to incogni.com/PeterSchriepel or use code PeterSchriepel to get 60% off an annual plan today. It's kind of crappy here in Ohio, so let's go to Florida to find some better weather, where it's hopefully calm and we can get this plane in the air. But first, the floats did break in the beginning because they were just regular plastic, so I got some Total Boat and we got some fiberglass. So I'm going to take the Total Boat epoxy and we're going to coat these floats and make them a lot more durable because I don't want to have a weird bad landing like we did in the beginning where we almost lost the airplane. So fiberglass this, a coat of paint here. Man, this thing looks great. Alright, let's take off and see what we can do. Alright, this thing flies great. I'm just kidding, it doesn't really fly great. We have all the submarine hardware now attached to the airplane, so it's making it even heavier. It looks like a yellow banana. It's still a little tail heavy, but hey, it flies good enough. I mean, have you ever seen a submarine plane fly before? I've never seen a submarine fly before, so I'll take this crap as a success. So now that we've flown with all the submarine hardware attached, we can now get onto the underwater testing. I've also cleaned up the airframe a little bit, got rid of those ugly green foam blocks, and now we put some of this white Depron foam, which is also acting as a Klein-Volgman style airfoil. It really just helps bring this plane to completion and make this thing a little bit better. It also helps stiffen up the wings some too, which is generally a good bonus. And we've also added some of this white Depron to the tail to help offset the weight of the tail motor, which is dragging the plane's butt into the water. To the best of my knowledge, this is the first time I've ever seen anyone make an RC airplane into a submarine. This is based off a real concept in real life, but I've never seen it built by anyone anywhere. So this is probably a world's first, if I could say that for myself. Although the concept was there, it was definitely pretty dumb, and I'm not really sure how you would build this thing in real life. It would definitely be a mechanical nightmare. But for a fun toy airplane, it definitely looks cool in this pool. Flying this thing underwater is pretty surreal. Like, everything happens in super slow motion, and you have to precision fly it underwater, because if you get the antenna too far below water, it gets out of control and it loses radio signal. So that's definitely not a bonus. So you have to pitch down, fly underwater, level off very quickly, and keep that antenna in the sweet spot, all while watching this thing fly in super duper slow motion. It looks super cool though. And now that we've completed this underwater pool test, we're not quite done yet. We still have to do one more thing. So we have a submarine airplane that can submarine and fly, but it's never done it all in one singular shot. So let's take it to the lake and try to see if it can do it unassisted, where it can fly around, land, submerge, pump out the water, and take off again without being touched. Alright, let's take off. There we go. Alright, we are airborne. Alright, now we land. And now, time to submerge. You can see one tank is fully filled because now it's purging water in the top. The other one, we're waiting a little bit, and it should start sprinkling out to know that the floats are fully submerged, and then we can advance into submarine mode. Now it's pumping. Now we're going down. I'm advancing the power, and I'm pushing the nose down. All right, we're under the waves. So now we're pumping out the water. You can see the opposite is happening because now air is being drawn into those tubes and pushed into the floats. So right now, you can actually see the nose is starting to rise up and it's getting ready to come out of the water. I mean, it's going to actually take a minute, but it's going. All right, so that's kind of funny because of the way the pontoons fill with air, because they're so much lower than the weight of the airplane, that they inflate and they pick the nose of the airplane up so high that the breathing line, which is needed to vent the floats, goes underwater, so ultimately does nothing. So I have to kind of drive the airplane forward and keep that above the water to keep this thing going. So it still works as far as the submarine part goes, and we're getting out of water, but it's definitely not ideal. It doesn't sit well in the water. That looks so cool. It's definitely coming out of the water by itself, all on its own. Purge the ballast tanks, get rid of the water, get us in the air. But once it's done, it'll blow bubbles out of the pickup line. So that's the gear pumps working, because they work both from forward and backwards. Now it blows bubbles. We know our tanks are finally empty and free and clear of water. Okay, so I might have to cheat a little bit. I think the pickup lines is not exactly at the very bottom of the sponson, so I'm getting a little bit extra water out by doing this, so a little bit of cheating, but that's a slight design parameter to fix that. Come on, there we go, we're airborne again. It works! We've submarined out of the water, and we're back in the air. It's so stupid, but it works. Let's go. Oh, it flies so freaking terrible. Submarine plane. I say this was a great smashing success. Like, maybe okay, kind of a success. Like 95% there. I could probably do better. So we're going to try this again when you all forget about my video and this thing flatlines because YouTube doesn't really appreciate my content anymore. Everyone forgets. So we're going to do the allied version of this, which is a cool jet-powered submarine, which looks even dumber. So subscribe for that. We'll do that in a few years when this thing becomes relevant, and we'll do this all over again, but hopefully with FPV this time.